All right. Welcome to another one of our great webinars in our Agritourism Inspiration webinar series. I'm really excited this evening to have another Queenslander. I promise we don't have all Queenslanders, but we do have another Queenslander. Tonight we have Rachael Lang from Diamondvale Estate in Stanthorpe in southern Queensland. So as you all know by now, the proceedings of the webinar, so I'll just give a quick introduction. I am going to share a brief video on the property, which I think just gives a really nice visual overview of Diamondvale. And then I'll hand over to Rachael. Rachael will share her story with you, and then we'll open up for some questions. So any questions that come to your mind, any kind of things you would like to know from Rachael, or if you want to just pick her brain on something, just take note of those, and we'll allow some time for questions after Rachael shares her story. So just briefly, I think for me, having talked to Rachael, one of the big things I feel that she's going to bring to this particular webinar series is just about how to deliver really exceptional guest experiences, which I think is really important no matter what type of agritourism venture that you're in. Rachael is really all about creating meaningful experiences and also really knowing what guests are looking for. Her property is also quite intimate. So for me, I also look at her property and go, how do you set boundaries, you know, in terms of your personal life with business and visitation? So I think there's some really interesting things that you'll take away from this conversation with Rachael this evening. But before I hand over to Rachael, I will just share this brief little video. As I said, I think it's great to have that visual of the property. So just bear with me for one moment. I'll share my screen. Just make sure your audio is up. Sorry, I better unmute myself. So that's Diamondvale Cottages. Now I'd like to hand over to Rachael, who will share a bit about her story and offer the opportunity for you to ask questions. Hi, Rachael.
Hi, Linda. Hello, everybody. Nice to join you all here. I will just see if I can push the magic button and share a screen here as well. Okay. Welcome to Diamondvale. For anybody that hasn't been to the Granite Belt, I was at a conference a couple of months back, which was all on new Queensland products. And people have heard of Byron Bay, they've heard of the Gold Coast, they've heard of Brisbane, they've heard of Bundaberg, but not many have heard of the Granite Belt. So Diamondvale is in the middle of the Granite Belt in Queensland. So we are just 2 kilometres from the main street of Stanthorpe. I'm Rachael. As Linda said, I'm a bit embarrassed and a little bit humbled to be asked by Linda and Kushla to share our adventures, because we are pretty new to this industry, but we are feeling very grateful for the mentoring and the experience that we've had from these great ladies. So I'm going to trust them and just share what it is that we do. Anyway, so here's where we are. So we're within that 2 to 3 hour self-drive from Brisbane, Gold Coast, Byron Bay. Most of our guests are domestic travellers, but we are sort of looking at that international market again as things start to open up. We were a little bit excited until recently when Bonza kind of bombed, unfortunately, into Toowoomba in the last week or so because they were bringing, flying guests into that location just 2 hours from us, which is a lot more accessible than Brisbane Airport, which can be a little bit of a challenge. A little bit about us. So we've gone very much from a life A to life B, as we like to call it. So my husband and I met on the Sunshine Coast about 9 years ago. We're both deep in the trenches of solo parenting our respective teenagers and working hard on our businesses. But we're also planning what was going to come next, because when you're in the trenches, you need some light at the end of the tunnel. I'm sure you could all relate. But what we really were looking for was a simpler life. We were keen for something that was more community focused. We'd both spent a lot of years on our respective grandparents' farms. So David grew up near Childers on his grandparents' sugarcane farm. And although I grew up in Canberra, my formative years were in Candelo in the Bega Valley on my grandparents' dairy farm. So school holidays would rock around in Canberra and we'd be driven to Yass to hop on a train to go to Albury to some other grandparents. So I'm very much familiar with Gundagai. It was a fairly obvious stop for lots of people. So life B for us 3 years on has never been more different. We've never been happier and we've never worked harder, but in different ways to what we were used to. And it's just one of those extraordinary things that was meant to be, I guess. So a little bit about the property here. The homestead at Diamondvale was built in 1907. There's a couple of earlier photos here. It was situated in nearby Liston, just over the border in New South Wales, and it was owned by a very well-known and a very large family. I think they had about 12 children. We're recently part of the Apple and Grape Open Gardens here, and we had a lot of locals come and everybody was claiming to be a descendant of the house. And plenty were telling us about sports days and other things that used to happen in that community. So it was really nice to feel tied to a little piece of history around here. So the homestead was moved from Liston about 30 years ago. And it was opened by that owner as the very first B&B in Stanthorpe. So when they opened that, they decided that although they had no experience of doing this, they knew if they wanted to do it, they wanted to set a really high standard and not be available to everybody. They were kind of really clear about the type of experience that they wanted to have. And we were fortunate enough to meet these great people a couple of years ago. They just came to stay. We didn't know who they were, and that they shared lots of things with us, and that was really helpful. And we've been at different times. I go, what would Lynn do? And I've been fortunate to, hang on to their phone number, and we ring up her husband, Joe, and go, we've got an issue with the tractor. What would you do? Would you sell it? Different things. So that for us is really, it's great to be connected to something, is what we love the most. So we are now the fourth owners of this property, and each one has put their own little touch on the property itself, and depending on the amount of time that they've spent here. So the original owners were here 15 years, and as the fourth owners, we've been here now just gone 3 years. So we're really excited to maintain that standard of excellence for guests, and we're really excited by the idea that we've had guests that have been returning here for 20 plus years. But I guess they come back for the things that are familiar, and for us, because we do have that ongoing guest sort of patronage, we're able to then invest in other things around the property so that it's fresh and there's something for them to keep looking forward to, and there's good reasons for them to continue choosing us when they could choose anywhere, really. So amongst the other things on the property is what you can see here on the left-hand side, which is the Pioneer Hut, which is a big draw card for our property. It's the meeting place or the gathering space for guests when we've got groups in. We had a lovely bunch in here over the weekend. They booked it 12 months ago. And they picked us because we have this other gathering space where they can get together. Everybody relaxes into a leather armchair and they sit around the fire. They had a lot of red wine and a whole bunch of fun, and made some really interesting and fun memories there. So in the last couple of months, we applied for the Building Bush Tourism grant that the Queensland government has put out. And fingers crossed, we'll be able to extend this hut so that it's sort of all seasons. We'll be able to make it a good deal bigger, add in a bathroom, a kitchen, some water tanks, some landscaping, make it a bit more accessible for those that are a little bit challenged on otherwise normal kind of bush settings. We like to have a project or a key thing that we do each year. Last year, we renovated or completely revamped one of the probably a 5-acre paddock between the two larger cottages. We've put in a couple of more outdoor fire pits. We've put in an outdoor bath and a few other shelters and different things there, just so that there's something new around the place. I guess for us, the idea of still being in Queensland, we've both been Queensland folk for a long time now, but having 4 seasons is a real novelty. Queenslanders, the colder it gets, the more excited they are to be booking somewhere with a fireplace especially. We'll go through probably 12 tonne of firewood between April and October. And a couple of these photographs, the top 2, the winter and autumn ones, were taken here on our property. So probably every 15 years we get a good dump of snow. So people do ring and ask when the snow season is, but we'll leave that to the southern folks. Our cottages, we've got 2 one-bedroom cottages and we have 2 two-bedroom cottages. Each one of our cottages has all of the same kind of standard of fixtures and fittings. They've all got, leather lounges, internet TVs, fireplaces, air conditioning, a fully kitted out kitchen, so they are self-contained. But the overall, I guess the appeal is, although we can only take a maximum of 14 guests, each cottage has a different outlook and a different view. You can see from one to the other, but you certainly couldn't hear a conversation. So even if you are travelling as a group, a lot of people ring and they go, I really like to stay in one giant house so we can all be together. But like, really, do you want to all be together that long? So the idea of having that shared space down by the creek in the hut is awesome, but being able to go back to your own space has been really important to our guests as well. So a couple of pics there of the 1-bedroom cottages, great for couples. And then we've got some 2-bedroom cottages that have been designed with 2 couples in mind, or families. So bedrooms are at the opposite end of the cottage, so there's a bit of privacy as well as that shared space in the middle. I guess coming from an event background and that community connection kind of space, I love events and I love bringing people together. And I'm kind of known for saying yes to just about anything and then figuring it out later. So in the last few years, we've done a handful of lovely, intimate weddings. We've had family reunions. We've immersed ourselves in community sponsorships where we can, some charity stuff. Like I said before, the open gardens. We've had yoga retreats, pottery workshops. I think next month we're doing a photography workshop. So there's always something on the go, which is great, because when we get groups in, they more or less take care of themselves because they just want to be together. But when you come as a group, generally before they leave as a group, we will get other bookings for them to come back as a family or to come back as a couple or a corporate retreat, that kind of thing. So although it's still the same offering, there's lots of different kind of demographics that are interested in a stay here, which is great for us. Early this year, we had a little business meeting. Family meetings include our teenager because she has a different view on things. She's sort of involved in our business at a level that, is appropriate for her. And we just go, come on, Meg, family business meeting night, there's no bad ideas. Until the first one she came out with. Then we thought of the next one, and we had a couple of years back, there was a tractor and a slasher in our garage, and we'd never touched it. We're both a bit intimidated by big machinery. So we ended up selling it. Little did we know at the time that it was a bit of a piece of history and people were keen for it. So we had folk fighting over it. And we then admitted to one another we always had a hankering for a Sunday car. And we bought ourselves a little 1960 Morris Minor. So that was just our Sunday car, and we chug around in that from time to time. And now recently we've just been through all the red tape, and we're now running private tours in that little car, which is a whole bunch of fun for everybody. It feels like a day off for me. So I get to go out with guests and take them around the wineries and different things and make it a little bit more fun and a bit more bespoke than, piling people onto the minibus. So that's events and stuff for us. Surprise and delight is probably my happy place and part of my DNA as an event manager. I was never really trained as that, but I grew up a lot around some really traditional kind of values. My grandma would always busy herself in knowing what was important to other people, what their favourite tea was, what they liked to eat. If it was someone's birthday, she would know when it was their kids' birthdays or an anniversary or something. So I guess I was always familiar with those types of things. And when I'm talking to guests on the phone, because we get a lot of oldies that don't really want to just book online, they want to talk to a human. And we value that a lot. Whilst you can fill in a form on our website, I reckon we've had probably less than a handful of those types of folks. If they're making inquiries, they don't want to fill in a form, they want to talk to a human. And when they get to talk to you, you can ask them questions, or they're going, I really like to plan something special for my wife, she's been working hard, or this or that. And I can make little notes and I build a little kind of persona, or I don't know, I try and put myself in their shoes and go, what would be a great thing for them? What are those little extra things that might make them kind of feel like they've been heard and recognised for what it is that they're looking for? So they're simple things, and generally they're not things that cost a lot of money, but they have a lot of value for our guests. So it might be simple as, a guest just 10 minutes ago went, he's bought a package, can we add on an extra breakfast? Sure. There's no Uber in our little town. We've made a restaurant booking. How do we get there? And I went, look, we're here. We're more than happy to run you 10 minutes up the road. It's the greatest news of his day, to not have to book a taxi. For us, I'm probably going to be picking my teenager up from somewhere, zero inconvenience, but it's meaningful for them. So, it's more about being a curious person and understanding what it is that people might be impressed by. Very rarely, I think, people are impressed or value a discount. We prefer to add in something extra that they're not expecting. Most of our guests are well and truly paid up probably a month out before they check in. We don't like the idea of talking money when people are here. All that's paid for, it's done. And that way we can just concentrate on their experience when they arrive. So surprise and delight is a really important part of what we do. This cute little family left us a note in one of our guest books just last month, and we have met these people at least 10 times in the 3 years that we've been here. It's a one-child family. They live in Brisbane, so only 2.5 hours drive from here. And I think through the tail end of COVID, if they were isolating in Brisbane, there was different rules and regulations here. So they would come out here and isolate and homeschool and do all the wonderful things because we didn't have the same restrictions here. And their 9-year-old takes great delight in searching through the guest books to find their last thing and see how her handwriting has changed. And they draw pictures of our cats, and they're a whole bunch of fun. So this last trip, she'd never been fishing before, and on her 10th birthday she managed to catch 6 fish. So just in our creek right out the front here. So it's a whole bunch of fun for them. We call her Detective Lexie. So each time she comes, she is determined to find what has changed from her last visit. And it might only be 3 or 4 months. And even if it's, moving a pot from one side of the veranda to the other, like, she knows what's going on. Like, she just loves it. So on her last visit, I asked her if she had a job and if she was interested in being part of our team. She was a bit intrigued, and I'd already asked her mum. I said, does Lexie like writing? Yes, definitely. Does she enjoy drawing? Yep, definitely. So she's now on our payroll as a junior tourism reporter for Diamondvale. So she'll have a spot on our socials, on our website. She's rewriting our family itinerary that we prepare for guests from the perspective of a young person. So whilst I've read plenty of young people, it's important to her, and she is so thrilled about it. So she's sending us through a couple of things at the moment, and we'll buy her a gift voucher to her favourite shop, or something in one of her stays the next time she's out. So for us, when we're thinking about doing something, we have that particular family in mind. When we're thinking of a family experience, there's other couples that pop to mind when we're sort of running that kind of ideas through a filter of the guests that we know that like to come here. And I've even phoned them up at different times when I was putting together a family itinerary for a group from Singapore, and went, what is it that Lexie loves? And she went, oh, well, here you go. Here's 5 bullet points, and away we went. So we don't begin to think that we know what it is that people come for. A lot of the time they're coming just to sit on somebody else's lounge and breathe all the way out, because we have to leave our own houses to do that now, right? Partnerships for us are really important. Moving to a small town of less than 5,000 people and not knowing a single person was probably my idea of a nightmare, but also you get to be genuinely whoever you were meant to be. And in small towns, it's embraced. Nobody's faking anything. And I'm just so thrilled to be in this little community. And we're amazed at the depth and the breadth of the creators that are in these little towns. We've got 50-odd winemakers, there's cheese makers, there's brewers, distilleries, truffle growers, jam makers, soap makers, artists, all kinds of things. So, and they all add to what my dad calls a rich tapestry of an experience. So we want to get out and immerse ourselves amongst all of those things, and from there we're able to create itineraries or suggestions and things. And what's good for us is good for everybody else in town as well. So if there's an experience that we love, we'll certainly recommend it. If it's an experience that is sometimes great and other times not all that reliable, it's going to reflect on us, so we're a little bit more hesitant. But it also gives us an opportunity to kind of have a chat to those people and figure out, what works for everybody. But the main thing for us being newbies into this space and coming to this industry from a standing start on the tail end of COVID, we sold everything that we had to move to this place, and there was no way it wasn't going to be a success. We shook out, the coins that we could find under the lounge cushions to make it happen. And for us, we kind of went, we don't know what we don't know. And these smaller communities are really determined to see everybody succeed, because when new people do, they bring in new investment, they bring, new ideas and relationships as well. But I just kept asking questions. I joined on every group I could find. I joined every membership thing I could find. And, Tilma group, absolutely awesome. And but I got quickly the idea that there was no dumb questions. When I was having issues with our laundry service, there was 3 people I could ring and go, hey, what is it that you do? Like, this is what we're experiencing. Is this unique to us? Because when you're in your own little bubble, it's really hard to know if this is, something that's worthwhile. And we've changed a whole bunch of things around our business on the collective intelligence of people that we've met that have been so completely generous. They could see us as opposition, but they're not. Because, we only have 4 cottages to fill. Some others had 20. Some others are running caravan parks, camping sites and things like that. But there is still a shared experience. So for us, our local tourism group that I went to their AGM the first year we were here, came home the treasurer, don't recommend it. But it has been this immersion of experience and insights from generous people that are well experienced, and they're awesome. But the best people that I've learnt from have been our guests, because they want to come back, they want to see us succeed, and that they need good reasons to keep doing that. So other than that, from a resource perspective, I just keep asking questions, and I'm probably a little bit annoying, but there's people that want to hear and they've got plenty to share and are really willing to do that. So I'd like to think a couple of years in, I've learned some things. I think we've seen enough guests to know that we've seen probably one of everything. We've been surprised, but we've been genuinely enriched by the whole experience, even as a family living on site all the time. It's been, something that's brought us immense amounts of joy. I've never seen my husband happier, from a very reluctant lawyer for 35 years. You've never seen somebody so excited to be chopping wood and mowing lawns. It's a real treat. So that's enough from me for now. But if there's something that has resonated with anybody, I'm here and, keen to share.
Rachel, that's amazing. Like, what a beautiful story. I guess the first thing I would love to just explore a little bit with you is that whole thing around, separating your home life from the business and guests, being a smaller, more intimate property. Because we often get asked this question from farmers. They're like, well, I want to do something and I've got an idea, but people are just going to be walking all over my property all the time. So really curious on how you put those boundaries in place and how you manage that, even, with a teenage daughter. And I'm even interested to know if you go as far as you need your own time, right? And this is the other thing we often hear from farmers is going, well, does this mean people are coming all year? Like, how do I manage this? Like, how do you actually then have your own time?
Yeah, it is a challenge, and I'm not going to sugarcoat that. But I think for us, we needed to learn every aspect of the business, and it was really important to us that although we kept on the team that was here, I just followed them around. I'm unafraid of cleaning toilets and doing all the things. So we are fully immersed in that, and from there we kind of decided where our skills were. But we know that if something needs doing, we can jump in. As far as the kids are concerned, we've only got one teenager at home, but we do have, plenty of other children that are adults that come and go and do their things because they like to come and be part of it. For Meg, we gave her some jobs to do, and on our little welcome letters and all of that communications that happen in the lead up to a guest arriving, we give them the sense without using the words, but we're inviting them into our space. We're not a hotel where there's a night manager or something like that. You are coming onto our property and we're going to welcome you. But it's still very much our home. And although we're kind of not, looking out the window and going, oh, yeah, they shouldn't be parking there or doing this or that, we could sometimes go 4 days and I couldn't tell you what a guest looked like because they are checking themselves in, they're doing their things, or, a lot of people are peopled out and they don't need to see us. We make it really clear we're here, we're on site, we're accessible, we do have an office, doesn't mean I sit here, from 9 till 5 or anything like that. But we just, when we know guests are roughly arriving, we'll be out and around in the yard doing something. That's when we'll take the time to be out watering or picking up sticks or whatever it is that we're doing. We're not making noise, but we're just out and around so we can say hi, so they can see that we're here. And then we kind of disappear. And we just say to people, we're around if you need anything. Let us know. Otherwise, we are going to leave you to yourselves. And we're very clear about that. Unless you need something, we're not coming knocking on the door each day and going, what are you up to and what's happening? We leave them to it. But the first year that we were here, there was a lot of work that needed to be done out in the yard, and we'd be out there absolutely grubby messes, covered in gunk by the end of the day. And then guests are arriving and they're like, oh, jeepers, what have we walked into? So we look erect, the place is looking great. But all we want to do was kick off our dirty shoes and sit and catch our breath with a cold drink out on the veranda, which is beautiful because it overlooks the creek. But that's where people are walking by, and then you need to engage with them. You've got to say hi. And some people don't want that. So one of our first projects was to build a deck around the back of our house. Nobody walks by there. It's quite private. And, if we need to be, just having a cup of tea, just the two of us, and kind of like, okay, what's our plan for the day? That's where we'll go. So if I'm driving in with a teenager and we've got, unloading groceries, it's not the time that you want to be all that accessible to guests. So we'll drive around the back, so it's just that deliberate kind of space without like being approachable. We had a guest recently say it was the best invisible hospitality that they've enjoyed. So for a lot of people, they don't want that. Or they're not keen for that, bed and breakfast experience. They don't want to open their bedroom door and find, there's 5 other people they don't know. So we can't say, oh, here's 30 acres and it's peaceful and it's quiet and it's secluded, but we're going to be in your face all the time. So for us, we're just kind of like, well, we want to live here. We had a life before. It's important for us to kind of carve out those things. So, but for us individually, because we are now living on site, we're working together. I say to David, you need to go to golf. So that will happen once or twice a week, and he'll catch up with somebody else within this kind of space, and and they'll talk things out. For me, I just kind of, I've got a little craft space out the back, and I'll just disappear out there for a couple of hours. So we're here, but it's rarely felt like an imposition. So there's parts of our property that are very much ours. And whilst there's not electric fences and stuff around it, it is clear when you are crossing a boundary, even if it's just a visual thing. So, if guests have got young kids, we might say, hey, tomorrow morning, sometime after about 9 o'clock, we'll be feeding the chickens, or we're going to walk up to, usually in the afternoon, we'll walk up and feed the horses. If you're around and you're interested, please join in. So it's not tours are on at 3 o'clock. It's just, if you want to be part of it, that's what we're doing, kind of thing. So, it's not an easy thing, but you will find your own groove.
Thanks, Rachel. If anyone else has any questions, please jump in. I just want to ask another one while others are thinking. What would you say, having moved, obviously it was an existing business. You've come out of other industries. I know events, you've obviously been able to transfer some skills from that space into where you are now. But I'm interested to know, making that move, what were some of the main challenges you had to overcome, and any great insights into how you did overcome them?
Yeah, I think we didn't understand just how much this property was, like how it was frequented by so many people, like over a substantial number of years. So I think for us, there's a lot of people that are quite familiar. So when they pull up, they're like, no, we're sorted. We'll sort ourselves out. We're off doing this or that or whatever else. And you're kind of like, oh, okay, off you go, kind of thing. So for that, it was the best and the weirdest thing for us, because some people were more familiar with our property than what we were. That was a little odd. The property and the region had been through a lot. They were come through a pretty substantial drought. Then there were some fires in the region. Then there was COVID. The people that we bought from were only here less than 4 years. So it was going to be the big tree change for them. And then a series of things made that really quite challenging. And we were determined that this was going to be a long-term thing for us. Whilst the business was well established, we weren't, and we didn't know what we didn't know. My husband was still working back on the Sunshine Coast. So for the first 2 years, I was here on my own with the teenager, and he would come out each weekend. So it was like ready, set, go on the weekend. Here's the list, and oh, nice to see you, by the way. So for us, it was kind of balancing all those things, but we knew that was this initial steep learning curve. But we also knew if we immersed ourselves within the community, it would be a lot better. I said to my teenager, give me 2 terms. That's all I ask for you. Because it was a big move for her. And I think early on we had the great fortune of meeting the original owners. So for us, we were able to borrow their great sense of purpose and their vision for the property. And I think if you're a multi-generational farmer, you probably have that sense of ownership and that sense of place and the importance of, you know, that DNA in your family. And we just felt that instantly, like the moment we got out of the car when we first looked at the place. So for us, it's like, well, how are we going to be doing this for a long time? How do we manage that? So, yeah, and I think the first year we were reluctant to change too much or do anything too different, because, you know, people have clearly been coming and they like it. So, well, we changed that. But then I'm paying the interest bill to the bank and going, well, they're our joint venture partner. We need to feel like there's some sense of us here. So it was only then that we kind of went, yeah, it's okay. Like, we do have other skills and things that we can contribute and really make it our own. But it took us a little while to figure out when that was appropriate and, you know, and say to guests, you know, you've been coming here for 5, 10, 15 years. What do you love about it? What else would you like to see? And we're like, oh, okay, we were thinking that too. So, yeah, you know, trying to find the right time for us to put our stamp on it and feel like we're running our own business rather than, I can only imagine what it'd be like. My uncle inherited my grandparents' farm, you know, because he was the son and that's what happens. And it was not his dream, it was not his thing, but like this overwhelming pull for, I need to honour this family kind of traditions and the DNA of all of that. You know, if it didn't fit for him, it just didn't fit. Where for us, we're kind of like, this does fit for us and we like this lifestyle and the people that we meet, but it needs to be sustainable. So for us, that was a little bit of a challenge to make it our own, but still honour those that have come before us and the reasons why the guests come here. Long-winded response.
I really want to jump in with a question because I think something that the Granite Belt does really well is collaboration. That there's this local tourism organisation called Granite Belt Wine Tourism because there's so many wineries amongst everything else. And I'd just love to hear a bit about how that works well. Why does it work well there and how do people collaborate? How do business owners collaborate?
Yeah, I was involved in lots of, like if somebody said, oh, come to this networking thing with me, I would literally rather set my hair alight. Like, it is just not my thing. I don't enjoy it. It always felt like it was like, oh, who are you? And air kissing people and like, oh, great to see you. And like, nobody cared whether or not you showed up. That was my experience on the Sunshine Coast, where it was very competitive. There's lots of people in the marketplace and there's lots going on. Here, I'm like, oh, I went along to the first AGM of the Granite Belt Wine Tourism group and they went, oh, we've got lots of new members here tonight. If you're new, put your hand up, which I did. And they're like, oh, introduce yourself. I went, hi, I'm Rachael from Diamondvale. And 80 heads spin around to go, oh, who are you and where are you from? And, you know, they're excited because there is somebody new that's choosing to come here. They're choosing to unpack their life, bring their experience. And they're like, oh, I think they're a bunch of curious folk. And they're just like, who are you? What's going on? You know, who do you know? What do you know? And I don't know, I've often referred to it as the co-opetition. So it's not a competition. You know, I met that night somebody that just opened a brand new accommodation business and it was quite unique. I said to him, how's it going? Because I didn't know anybody. And you went, oh, yeah, like we've been through 2 years of setting it all up and now all we need is some guests. And I'm like, school holidays are coming. I only had a 2-minute conversation with the guy and then all the phone calls I was getting over the next few weeks, we were already fully booked. So they're like, well, where do we go? And I'm like, ring this guy. I'd never seen his property, but he seemed genuine and, you know, a decent kind of fella. Nobody else had any availability. And he phoned me a week later and he goes, I'm full, thank you. And I'm like, oh, no problem. You know, so it didn't, there's no skin off our nose. We want people to come to the region and we want for them to come and experience things. And, you know, what's great for us is good for the guy running the wine tours. It's good for the bakery. It's good for the servo. You know, it's a really basic kind of thing. And, you know, all those rising tides and sharing everybody's experience is really important. The wine part of our tourism group, there's about 50 wineries in our region. They meet once a month. They have a wine dinner. those people get together, they share equipment, they share, you know, their challenges, or I've got this grub or whatever, you know, or the lingo. And together it's a whole bunch easier, you know. Out of that, there's another subgroup of about 34, 35 members that run accommodation businesses of all different types. We get together once a month. We have a coffee date, or we go to somebody else's property and we just have a look around. We understand what else is out in the marketplace. And it's just from a place of curiosity rather than going, oh, I think we're better than them, or I wouldn't do that. I would do it like this. You know, that's not the point of it. It's just kind of knowing what everybody else is doing. And we always learn something from them. And that's a really exciting thing, you know. And we want to be able to, when our friends come, you know, where's a good winery? Where should we go for dinner? I've got a gift to buy to take back, you know, what should I do? And I guess from that, we've just started building, you know, lists and contacts and, you know, imagery and things like that. And we've built lasting instant friendships, which we weren't doing back in our other place where we lived 20 plus years. So I think that's a country thing. I like to think it is. It's just a wonderful place.
Rachael, can I ask, just on Granite Belt Wine Tourism, what's the relationship with council? Because that, just for those that aren't familiar, that falls under Southern Downs Regional Council. So it's a really big amalgamated council, which is Warwick, Stanthorpe, and everything in between. So it's a big footprint, and there tends to be kind of two areas to the region. Like Warwick is kind of up here, if you like, and then Stanthorpe down towards the New South Wales border, and they're quite different, you know, although they sit with under one council. I'm curious just to know what council's role is, or what kind of relationship there is with council or partnership. Or is it purely industry driven now and there's not a lot of involvement from council?
Yeah, so Granite Belt Wine Tourism has about 135 members in our tourism, wine tours, makers, not-for-profit groups that run the local markets, the Historical Society, all those types of things, the foodies, and, you know, a whole bunch of different things. So we have a membership fee, and that is like more or less matched by Southern Downs Regional Council. And out of that, we provide destination marketing. So we have an external marketer in Krista Horitz, and she does a fantastic job, her and her team, and they help us put the destination on the map. And together we run different events. In Saturday week, we're running Grazing the Granite Belt, where we'll get 250 people on 4 or 5 coaches, and there's 11 locations. So hop on, hop off bus around the wineries that some offer food, like as normal part of their everyday business. Others will bring in food providers. So people will buy a ticket to get on the bus. It'll include vouchers for food and wine. It'll include brunch the next day, and people can come and do the lap around, you know, different things, different experiences. We run that twice a year. We've run comedy events. We've done loads of different things to showcase what happens in this region and what makes it unique. So the Wine and Tourism group also run like workshops for some of their members. So we're currently pulling together, as a result of a recent survey, what our members understand about marketing, and probably from that social media lens more than anything. But you know, recently there was a change in Queensland health regulations around tank water. You know, so our newsletter that's about to go out next week will go, hey, did you know? Here's some things that you need to be aware of. So it's a matter of like sharing that information and bringing people together, and like that collaboration with council. Council realises that they're not, it's not their skill set in order to like create that destination marketing, and the tourism kind of component that comes to Warwick is vastly different to what we have here in Stanthorpe. So whilst most of their team are based in Warwick, there's a lot there around motorsports, polo cross, things like that. It is not wine and food and, you know, national parks and all those types of things. It's a completely different kind of market segment. And, you know, when you get the pros in, it really helps, you know. So Krista brings the travel writers to town, the blogs and, you know, all the national publications and things that we get as a result of that destination piece has been critical to the, you know, putting Stanthorpe and this region on the map over the last few years.
I have another quick question around you that I think would be helpful for the farmers I've been mentoring, which is you do a whole bunch of events you'd never done before, like the pottery workshops, photography workshop, also the vintage guided car tour. I'm just curious about what it's like, that process of starting or trialing something new, learning by doing, and then making it as a, you know, regular experience.
Yeah. I guess a friend of mine was a potter. I met her at the local market, and she said to her, you know, I'm really keen to get some handmade things into our cottages. I don't want for guests to arrive and they could have the same experience in the mantra in Brisbane. I need for them to feel like they've landed where they are and have something that looks like us, something a little bit unique, you know, nothing over the top. And she's like, oh, we can do that. I can make you some plates and blah, 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 what have you. And out of that, we called up for, you know, a cup of tea. A few weeks later, she came over and she's like, I showed her around. And she'd moved to town not all that long ago, was trying to put together a workshop. You know, she's way out bush and like driveway's pretty hairy. She couldn't get people out there. And I went, oh, come to our hut, you know, we can do that. And she's like, really? And I'm like, why not? Let's give it a whirl. So we just kind of booked we put one weekend aside and said, let's see what we can do, and popped that into our newsletter. We put it up on our website. We uploaded that as an event on the Australian Tourism Data Warehouse. That got populated, loads of places, and a whole bunch of things that cost us nothing. We got bookings out of it. She got this other following. She's now opened a workshop space in town. You know, I couldn't be more thrilled for her. And that happened out of 4 workshops in the last 12 months. You know, we made a lot of stuff. We had a lovely time. And, you know, from that, we had another guest come stay. He took a photograph of like this astrophotography down by the creek. And I went, wow, that's amazing. You know, where do you teach that? And he goes, I work at a bank. I don't know anything. Out of that, we've kind of gently encouraged him, and he's doing a workshop here next month, you know. So it's one of those things, nothing ventured, nothing gained. And we just kind of like to go for it a bit and, you know, see what happens. But, you know, at the moment, we've only got a couple booked in for that, and that's enough. Like we'll trial that and see what happens, and I don't know, adjust pretty quickly. You know, we've not invested the national debt in marketing or anything silly, so no harm, you know, it's all good fun.
Hey, can I just ask Leah or Sharon, is there anything in particular you would like to ask Rachel?
Hi, Rachel. Thanks for sharing your story. It's been fantastic. There's a common theme I've just noticed of everybody saying, I say yes first and figure it out later. So that's been a really common theme. And I know I have to have a holiday too.
Yes.
So that's just on your marketing. I'm just flipping through your Facebook site on the side here. And like you said, you rely on a lot of returning customers. Do you do much marketing yourself? Do you do that yourself as well?
I do the socials ourselves.
They're fantastic. I love them.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
That's very nice of you. Look, we got a small grant a couple of years ago and refreshed the website because it just felt a little bit clunky to me. And I had a guest pull up once and he's like, oh, gosh. And I went, are you okay? And he's like, yeah. He says, it's the first time ever I've booked something and it's better than the website. So I kind of went, oh, okay, maybe our website's looking a bit tired, or, you know, I don't like the idea because we've all stayed at that place where the website's loads better than reality, and I don't like that at all. So with this small grant, I got somebody else to write the content, invited her out for a weekend. She happened to be somebody that I knew, so I knew that she was very good at that. Had her out for the weekend with her family. and she wrote all the content from her perspective. So it was completely third party removed, which is important. We got the video done and some videos within the cottages as well, and some new updated imagery. And from that, that kind of formed the idea of the new branding that we wanted to have. Like, we wanted to keep the thing that had always been flowing through, but it just needed to be a little bit fresher, and also consistent. So any of the signage we have here, anything that we can brand, we do, but not to the point where it looks corporate, you know, which is a fine kind of line. But for us, we just kind of like, my whole thing is if I see something when I'm out and about that makes me smile, I take a photo of it and I share it. And and not just to the point where you slap a logo on it and hope for the best, but sharing something that's quite genuine. And one day I realised, like, I was setting a cottage up before a guest arrived, and I took a few little shots because I think my mum phoned me. She goes, "What are you up to?" And I went, "Oh, just pick some flowers. I'm doing this and I'm putting chocolate in the fridge and whatever." And she goes, "I'd like to see what you're up to." So I just did a few little shots and joined them together as a video. And I thought, oh, I'm just going to post it on Instagram. We don't have as much traction on Instagram. Put it there and it went wild. And I'm like, oh, okay. You know, so a lot we're just kind of doing by trial and error. You can't break any of it. And because we inherited the booking system from the previous owners, and one before that, we've got, you know, probably 3,000 or 4,000 people that we can email to. And we like to do a seasonal newsletter. And when we send that out, guaranteed within a couple of days, we'll get 9 or 10 bookings. You know, because people are like, oh, I should do that. And, you know, but then when you pop into their inbox, all of a sudden you're kind of top of mind again. I like to think, you know, some of the insights that you get, like on Facebook, they go, oh, you should post at such and such a time. But I think, I don't know, that's when our guests are on. That might be what the algorithm tells you. So trial a few things and go, well, that didn't really work. You know, just adjust, keep on moving on from there. So I think for us, our main marketing objective is happy guests. Yeah. The rest kind of takes care of itself, you know, so, and not in an oversimplified way, but yeah, we just try and make it a good experience.
Well, all it was absolutely fantastic. And I'll have to visit.
We'd love to have you.
Thanks, Rachael.
I just have a question actually about how you navigate, like, the cost you're talking about, the people coming for the workshops and, you know, obviously your other bookable experiences. How have you navigated working out what you're charging for those things?
Yeah, I think for us, I like to have a bit of a look around. I'll just get onto Facebook or Google and go pottery workshop, and, you know, Google that, find out where it pops up and go, all right, well, compared to what I think we should be delivering or what I think might be good value for money, what's included, and then go, well, what part of that am I going to need a facilitator for? What part of that can we do? And then how do we pull all that together? How do we make that a simplified kind of process so that potential guest is pushing one button and making that one booking and everything's all included for them? Because a lot of the creatives who we work with are fabulous at what they do. Admin and marketing and promoting themselves is not their gig at all. So, yeah, just kind of figuring out, like, if people are coming to stay for a weekend, we don't want for it to be prohibitive. But for a lot of people that have come to do their workshops here, they, like, some of the stuff that they turn out in the pottery space or whatever, they kind of go, oh, they don't really care. Like 2 months later, their thing's all ready because it's been through firing processes, and sometimes I'll drop it off and they're not even interested in opening it up because what they've had is a weekend away. They've had a break from reality. They've been able to bring their sister, their mum, their co-worker, whatever. So that for them was what they invested in. Pottery was a byproduct, and they weren't really, whilst it was fun, they weren't really all that particularly interested. It was just the tipping point for them pushing the button to have the time off and to get away. So, yeah, for all of those folk, it was an interesting experience. The first one, I'm kind of like, oh, jeepers, what are we going to do? But then you see what some others are doing, and you're like, oh, gosh, they've spent, 2 hours making a mug and they've charged, twice what we have. Nobody's been fed or watered. And, so for us, we like to kind of curate that whole experience, and it makes a big difference, where I think the first one that we did, there was one person with some really complex dietary requirements. She was coming with her mum and her sister, and just by meeting that dietary requirement and assuring her that, yes, I understand that it's going to be safe, it's going to be tasty, and it's all going to be okay, for her, she was just blown away that somebody had taken that time. And, she got pottery as a byproduct. And she's told so many people. She said, I've always wanted to come stay there, and I never had, but as soon as the pottery thing came up, I've always wanted to do that too. So that was the tipping point. So I think it's to create something different for them to come, another reason why. And that made a big difference. And we had a lovely time. I sat and did it with them. We had a chat, and, and then you can have these casual kind of connections where people kind of share, why they booked or what they thought was good value or other things that they've done. I think Google's your friend, really. It's nothing new, really. It's just about how you put your flavour on something and how you can kind of solve that thing for somebody else in your own way.
Yeah. I have another question, if that's okay.
Yeah.
It's just in relation to your tourism group that you talked about.
Yes.
And how that sits with council. I suppose, I don't know whether you've got any ideas or tips. Like at the moment, we have 2 councils, and everyone has their different little group. But we're not getting any momentum from, and I'm talking particularly about Gundagai group. We're sort of, I think, plateaued, no traction, as you said. No one wants to go to networking. Everyone's busy. But we're really finding it hard to, I suppose, have a bit of a plan and a bit of drive and getting new members. And there's probably, I think I'm going to be very honest and say there's a little bit of disconnect there with council as well for a whole number of reasons, resourcing, all of those things. So any tips or any ways you think that we could try and move forward with a bit of a plan? Or
Yes. Look, I think it can be quite isolating trying to join all those dots. So our neighbours in Tenterfield, which is only 40 minutes drive from here, are over the border, and they're finding similar things. Whilst they've got a huge number of people that are coming geographically, they're on 2 major highways. They're about to have a huge amount of mountain bikers come there, but they have very limited kind of connection. There's a Chamber of Commerce, but, that's also for the mechanic down the road, not necessarily with that tourism kind of focus. Yeah. So they're trying to, and hopefully successfully, piggybacking onto what we're doing, because for them, some of their visitors, they can only drive 20 minutes and they're already in the Granite Belt and seeing some of our most southern wineries and attractions and national parks and things like that. So maybe piggybacking off, like another council that might be close, or even, I don't know, I don't speak bureaucrat very well, but I'd like to kind of dare them to do something better. So if you can see what's happening, like for us, I look to what's happening in the Scenic Rim. They do a fantastic job. What's happening in Byron Bay, what's happening in Noosa, and then find our contact here and like saying to them, hey, this is what they're doing here and these are the results they're getting. I wonder what it would take for us to have something like that, and then be quiet and wait for them to kind of help solve that. I don't know if that helps, but I think finding somebody where the light goes on in your particular council and just friendly stalk them.
Thank you.
My special guest has just arrived.
Look out, Leah.
I thought I better just introduce him. He's there.
Hi, everybody. Oh, I'm coming into focus now. Right, yeah.
Here he comes. This is my reluctant lawyer husband, David, who was instrumental in sending me a link one day and going, hey, we could do this. And I went, you are crazy. What are you doing? And sent me out here. And it's the best life decision we've ever made. But we're pretty good at, sticking in our own lane, making a little plan for the day, and we go round and round in circles, and I can hear him in a far off paddock, and he knows if the phone rings, I'm running in another direction, and we come together at the end of the day and go, hey, that was great. Let's do it again tomorrow. So
Yeah, separate it at 8 a.m. on the back balcony and meet up again at beer o'clock in the afternoon. Sort of. Probably suits Rachel a lot because I'm truly annoying. But, we're really lucky. Rachel's terribly modest and incredibly handy. There's a few things she won't tell you about herself, that she used to have a builder's license. If some tradie doesn't turn up, she hops in and does it. She's absolutely a phenomenon to herself. So
whole bunch of fun. We're really lucky to be in this space, and anything like this where we get to learn from others is, I was feeling nervous, but it's worthwhile. And and you will find somebody else in your region that is kind of the person that you need to kind of lean on, and keep pestering them, keep asking the questions.
Rachel, thank you so much. That was a beautiful story, and you can just sense your joy as you speak, in what you do. It's lovely. It almost makes me want to go out and find a property and build on. Especially when David says, come back and reconnect at beer o'clock on the back deck. That sounds lovely.
Yeah, it works.
But yeah, look, I really appreciate you giving us your time this evening to share. And we'll open up. Is there any final questions from anybody before we say goodbye? No. Well, thanks again, Rachel, and thanks everyone for joining us. And we'll see you all again soon.
Good on you. Thank you, guys.
Good night.
Very much.
See you.